Thanks to the iron horse, Proctor's dimensional stone business became the world's largest, and its railroad, the Clarendon and Pittsford, made it all possible. The 20-mile short line's primary function was transporting rough marble blocks, though concrete, coal, feed, lime, and reels also rode the rails. For a time, passenger cars shuttled employees to and from work, with occasional weekend picnic outings. Dieselization came in 1945 with a pair of center cab 44-ton Whitcombs. This overnight modernization made C&P the first fully dieselized railroad in Vermont. By the 1960s, declining demand and a conversion to trucking made the railroad unnecessary. In a surprise move, Vermont Railway's J. Wolfson and Harold Filsko grabbed the old has-been at a bargain price during 1972. For a couple of summers in the late 1970s, Mr. and Mrs. Richard Snyder leased surplus trackage for their former B&M S3, coach and open cars. In an unlikely scenario, the spotless Alco switcher guided passengers over industrial rails originally meant for hauling marble blocks on flat cars. Meanwhile, at the northern end of the line, Wolfson and Filsko's vision paid large dividends after the 1976 construction of an ultra-modern Omia limestone facility on the mountain above Florence. The surviving C&P quietly became the busiest mile of track in the state. 90% of product ships in short tank cars mixed with water in a consistency known as slurry. Each loaded vessel weighs 133 tons. The remainder of daily production is bagged and transported in boxcars, 90 tons, for use in auto parts, building materials, high-grade glossy paper, and the plastics industry. General-purpose EMD diesels power OMYA's empties upgrades exceeding 3%, while dynamic brakes are applied for the downhill return to Florence.
OMYA is an international company located in Switzerland. We're one of over 100 plants worldwide. In 1976, they purchased the Vermont Marble Company located in Proctor, Vermont, and from that point on, they've been grinding the marble to begin with. And using the water, we grind to a slurry to 0.7 micron and a 1.1 micron. And primarily it's used in the manufacture of paint, paper, and the plastics industry.
The trackage between Whitehall, New York and Rutland, Vermont, 24 miles, was operated for many years by the Delaware and Hudson. Vermont Railway took over the line, renamed it Clarendon and Pittsford. There was not a lot of freight traffic generated on that line. Castleton had a feed mill. The reason for acquiring this line was because most of the traffic coming to the Vermont Railway and the Clarendon and Pittsford came via the D&H at Whitehall. And service, when the D&H was running it, was very poor, very unpredictable.
They did the right thing by taking it over.
It was a very touchy situation running some of these trains over that.
The rail on that was in bad condition. I think they had 10 miles an hour all the way. And, you know, 10 miles an hour all the way, it's a long night.
These tracks still provide an important link to long-haul main lines between the Big Apple and Montreal.
When the Vermont Railway and Clarendon and Pittsford took over, they rehabilitated the entire line.
We worked with the state of Vermont and Amtrak to bring Amtrak into Rutland. That's when we did a major upgrade on that line with some federal money. And that track now is pretty much 59-mile-an-hour track for Amtrak, and we try to maintain it that way. CLP Whitehall crew leaves Rutland in the mid to late evening and arrives back in Rutland early in the morning.
Westbound 264 awaits the evening arrival of Amtrak's Ethan Allen before receiving permission to proceed. The nocturnal meet takes place at Tub Mountain Yards, south of Whitehall.
We interchange with CP every day, 7 days a week, pretty much 365 days a year. It is our largest interchange, and it usually goes pretty smooth. They do quite a bit of work in Whitehall when they're over there, and they'll get the train shuffled out to what they need for the upcoming day.
The Clarendon and Pittsford's crew must await permission from the CPR dispatcher to return to home rails.
For the most part, it was a relatively easy 24 miles of track to operate trains over, with one or two exceptions, the biggest one being the grade that starts immediately at the junction switch with the former D&H, now Canadian Pacific, line at Whitehall. There's a steady upgrade all the way from the yard at Whitehall to Fairhaven.